My name is Jennifer Carter, and I live in Seattle, Washington. My house sits near Green Lake, tucked on a quiet street lined with maple trees that turn red every fall. The siding is white, the shutters are black, and the porch is just wide enough for a swing and two chairs. I bought it for $740,000 after 15 years of work, and every corner reminds me of how hard I fought to stand on my own. The living room holds framed blueprints for my projects, old company badges, and notebooks full of ideas that once built an empire. One my own family decided I didn't deserve. 15 years ago, I left Seattle for New York City with a single suitcase and a folder full of drafts for a new product line. My parents, Patricia and Henry Carter, owned Carter and North, a mid-sized packaging company in Newark, New Jersey. When I arrived, the business was falling apart. Revenues had dropped to $28 million, and they were close to losing a major distribution contract. I was 26, full of ideas, and willing to give up sleep for progress. I moved into a small Brooklyn studio, paying $1,600 a month in rent, and started traveling up to Newark every morning before sunrise. I didn't walk in with an ego. I learned. I sat beside engineers who worked on adhesive strength and temperature testing. I studied inventory reports until I could quote them from memory. I met clients face-to-face instead of sending emails. I called suppliers across the country, Chicago, Denver, Dallas, Miami, and asked what made them hesitate to work with us. When I heard slow response or poor design, I took notes, fixed it, and called them back weeks later with results. Slowly, the numbers began to climb. I rebranded our packaging into eco-friendly models and pitched them to a national grocery chain that became our breakthrough deal. That one contract brought in $45 million the first year. Then came the hospital network barcode system, something I had personally designed with a team of 3 engineers. Within 10 years, we had gone from struggling to being valued at $250 million. By year 15, we reached $450 million. And through every step of it, I was there. I wasn't just an employee. I was the backbone. I ran logistics, managed product innovation, and personally negotiated half the company's largest contracts. But my parents never saw me as more than the daughter helping out. My brother Ethan, on the other hand, could do no wrong. Ethan joined the company 6 years after I did. Fresh from a management degree, he barely passed. He had never worked in a warehouse, never handled a real client complaint, and never stayed late to finish an order. He liked meetings with free lunch, boardroom speeches, and golf trips with suppliers. He was charming when cameras were on, but empty when the work began. Everyone called me Ops, short for operations, but Ethan got to be the visionary. I didn't mind, at first. As long as the company grew, I didn't need applause. I thought the results spoke for themselves. But I was wrong. It was a hot Monday in August when everything changed. I had flown in from a conference in Chicago that morning, still wearing my blazer and holding a binder of quarterly reports. When I stepped into the Newark headquarters, the atmosphere felt strange. The boardroom blinds were closed. My parents sat at the table beside Ethan, who was scrolling through his phone. My father cleared his throat as soon as I entered. "Jennifer," he began, "we've made a decision. It's time for new leadership at Carter and North." I frowned. New leadership? My mother smiled softly, a rehearsed expression. "Your brother has the vision to carry this company into the next phase. We're promoting Ethan to CEO." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The binder slipped from my hand. "You're cutting me out after I built this into a $450 million company?" I asked. My voice was steady, but I could feel the pulse in my temples. Ethan smirked without even pretending to be decent. "Your time is up," he said. "Pack your things and don't come to see me again." I looked at my parents, waiting for one of them to say it was a joke, or that they meant I'd be promoted elsewhere. Instead, my mother slid a folder across the table. "A generous exit package," she said. "You'll have time to start something new." I didn't open it. I didn't touch the pen. I just stared at them, these people I had trusted more than anyone, and felt something harden in my chest. "You're making a mistake," I said quietly. "You think this company runs because of its name, but it runs because of trust. Trust you didn't build." Ethan laughed, a low, dismissive sound. "We'll be fine without you." I pushed back my chair and stood.
"Got it," I said.
That was all. 2 words. The same words I'd used every time they'd underestimated me before. I walked out of the boardroom without looking back. Past the glass walls, past the framed photos of company milestones where I had always been cropped out. I got into my car, drove straight to the airport, and bought a one-way ticket to Seattle. That night, as I sat at the terminal waiting for my flight, I watched planes take off through the tall windows and thought about everything I had done for them. I remembered the late nights spent in warehouses, the negotiations that saved millions, the times I'd stood between our company and collapse. And now, I was being erased by the same people who had built their fortune on my work. But beneath the anger, there was calm. Because deep down, I knew something they didn't. The company wasn't thriving because of their name. It was thriving because of me. Every dealer, every supplier, every buyer who mattered trusted me, not Carter and North. They had taken the title, but I had taken the foundation. As my plane lifted off that night, the city lights faded beneath the clouds. I whispered to myself, "You think you ended my story. You just gave me a new beginning." And for the first time in 15 years, I didn't feel small. I felt powerful. Back in Seattle, the city looked calm, but inside me, there was a storm. I spent the first night back in my house near Green Lake, sitting by the wide window, staring at the water. The air smelled of cedar and rain. I brewed tea, opened my laptop, and stared at the Carter and North logo glowing on the screen. The company I had given 15 years of my life to now belonged to someone else, someone who didn't deserve it. But I wasn't angry. I was focused. Ethan and my parents thought I'd built Carter and North through numbers and systems, but what they never understood was that I had built it through people. Relationships. Late-night calls, road trips, emergency shipments, and promises that I had never broken. Those connections were the real foundation of our success, and they were all mine. So I started making a list. 64 names appeared on my spreadsheet, each one tied to a face I knew by heart. Dealers, distributors, and clients from cities like Cleveland, St. Louis, Phoenix, Charlotte, and Boston. These were the people who had trusted me when the company was struggling. They hadn't worked with Carter and North because of our name, they had worked with me because I never let them down. I didn't send a mass email. I didn't vent online or leak information to the press. I made calls one by one, calm and professional. "Hi, it's Jennifer Carter," I said. "I wanted to let you know there's been a change of control at Carter and North. I'm no longer there, and I can't guarantee the same quality moving forward. I'm building something new, something smaller and more transparent. If you'd like to stay in touch, I'll reach out once we're ready to serve you directly." Most of them went silent at first. Then came the questions. "What happened? Are you serious? Can we trust your brother?" I didn't answer the first 2, but I was honest about the third. "Ethan's a good talker," I said. "But this industry isn't built on talk. It's built on delivery." By the end of the week, more than half had told me privately they wouldn't renew their contracts. I hadn't asked them to. They just knew the truth. Without me, Carter and North couldn't function the same way. The next step was the supply chain. I reached out to old friends who had once been my allies behind the scenes. Grace Holloway in Ohio ran a board plant that I had helped modernize 5 years ago. She was efficient, loyal, and as tough as steel. When I called, she laughed softly. "About time you broke away," she said. "I was wondering how long you'd keep carrying that family on your back." Then there was Luis Mendoza in Oregon. His factory produced recycled cardboard that was cleaner and cheaper than anyone else's. I'd helped him secure his first hospital packaging contract. When I explained my plan, he didn't even hesitate. "Count me in," he said. "You gave me a start. I owe you." And finally, the tech team in Austin, 3 engineers who had once pitched a smart label tracking system that Carter and North had rejected. I had fought for them, but the board called it too experimental. Now they were funded, thriving, and eager to work with someone who believed in their idea. Within 2 weeks, I had the skeleton of a new supply network. Everything I needed, production, logistics, and technology, was ready to move when I gave the signal. I still hadn't told my parents or Ethan a word. Let them believe I was licking my wounds in Seattle. Let them sit in their boardroom and smile for photos while I quietly took apart the machine they thought they owned. But I wasn't doing it out of cruelty. I was doing it out of fairness. They had stolen my name from the door, but they hadn't earned the heart of the company. For legal reasons, I was careful. I didn't steal designs or data. I didn't copy software or blueprints. Everything I used was built from memory, relationships, and my own research. I knew the clauses in every contract because I had written them. I knew the renewal dates, the penalty terms, and the exceptions that could save a dealer money. I had created those protections to safeguard small partners during mergers. Now, those same clauses were the lifelines they used to walk away from Carter and North, legally and cleanly. By Friday, 39 buyers had signed temporary bridge agreements with me. They didn't even need a brand name yet, they just wanted me. By the following Wednesday, 6 of Carter and North's biggest dealers sent polite termination letters to the Newark office. Each one thanked the company for its service, then cited change of leadership and loss of prior assurances as the reason for withdrawal. The reaction must have been chaos. I didn't see it, but I could imagine Ethan pacing, my father red-faced, and my mother trying to call every contact on the list. Contacts who now ignored her. Meanwhile, in my little Seattle kitchen, I sat surrounded by empty coffee cups, my laptop glowing with spreadsheets. I hadn't slept more than 3 hours in days, but I wasn't tired. I was alive in a way I hadn't been in years. Every keystroke, every contract draft, every signature reminded me that I was reclaiming what was mine. Still, I refused to let revenge consume me. I told myself over and over, I don't have to be cruel to win. I only have to be clear. 2 weeks after the day they cut me off, I filed the paperwork for my new company, Northlake Systems, LLC. The name felt right, a nod to where I lived and a quiet echo of what they had taken. I paid $650 for registration and $1,800 for a lawyer to check the contracts. I invested $120,000 from my personal savings. It was nearly everything I had, but I didn't flinch. I bought a used Ford Transit van for $38,500 to handle early deliveries. I rented a small warehouse in Kent for $6,000 a month. My first hire was a woman named Mariah, young, brilliant, and organized. I offered her $82,000 a year plus a $10,000 performance bonus. She accepted immediately, saying, "I've heard about you. Everyone says you keep your word." That was all I needed to hear. So I kept working. Midnight calls, early morning emails, handwritten thank you notes to every client who trusted me. My family had taken everything they could, but they had overlooked the most powerful thing of all, my credibility. They had taken the company, but I had taken its soul. News in the business world moves fast, faster than my family ever imagined. Within 3 weeks of my departure, whispers started spreading across the supply chain. A client in Tampa called to say their shipment hadn't arrived. Another in Portland reported spoiled stock because a truck sat idle for 14 hours. Then came the bigger issues. A cosmetics company in Los Angeles discovered their labels peeled off under heat, and a major hospital system in Denver complained about missing barcodes on its medical packages. Small mistakes at first, then waves of chaos. I didn't need to lift a finger. The structure I'd built was precise. It needed constant attention, fast decision-making, and relationships based on trust. Once those were gone, the whole system began to crack. Ethan didn't have the patience to handle details or the humility to ask for help. He was too busy holding press meetings, acting like nothing was wrong. My father still believed experience could be replaced by orders, and my mother tried to soothe investors with words that meant nothing. They didn't understand that loyalty isn't commanded, it's earned. While their company unraveled, I kept building mine. Mariah and I turned our rented warehouse in Kent into a heartbeat of activity. The space smelled like cardboard and new paint. We stacked inventory neatly, tagged everything with bright green stickers, and ran daily checks on our shipments. I asked Mariah to design a dashboard that tracked every order. Red meant late. Yellow meant tight. Green meant safe. Simple, transparent, and honest, everything Carter and North had stopped being. I made one rule clear. We don't chase volume. We chase trust. I'd learned that lesson the hard way. So for every new client that joined, I offered them a flexible contract, lower fees for the first quarter, and 24-hour direct communication. If something went wrong, they'd talk to a person, not a machine. Orders started flooding in faster than I expected. Some from old buyers who didn't even bother, hiding their frustration with my brother's leadership. One said, "We were loyal to you, Jennifer, not your family's name." Another admitted they'd already lost thousands because of missed deliveries. I promised to make things right, even if it meant sleepless nights. And it did. I worked 16-hour days, drinking endless cups of black coffee and living off takeout noodles.
But it felt different this time.
I wasn't doing it for someone else's approval. I was doing it for my own survival and my own pride. Then came the morning that changed everything. It was early, gray, and quiet. Mist rolled off the lake outside my window.
I was sorting invoices when my doorbell rang.
I froze for a moment. It was too early for a delivery. I checked the security camera, and my stomach tightened. Standing on my porch was my father, Henry Carter. Behind him was my mother, Patricia, looking smaller than I remembered. And by the curb sat Ethan in his black Mercedes, staring at his phone like it held his last hope. I opened the door just a few inches, keeping the chain in place. "What do you need?" I asked. My father tried to step forward, but the chain stopped him. "We need you back," he said, voice heavy. "The company's in trouble. Dealers are pulling out, contracts are collapsing. We can't keep up with the cancellations." I said nothing. The sound of his words was almost surreal. For years, I had imagined hearing him acknowledge my value, but now that it was happening, it meant nothing. My mother spoke next, her tone soft and desperate. "Jennifer, please. We didn't realize this would happen. You were right about everything. Ethan's overwhelmed. We can't manage the logistics. If you come back, we'll make things right. Back pay, stock options, full authority." I looked at her, then at my father. His eyes darted to the ground, filled with something I'd never seen before. Fear. Not for me, but for the empire they were losing. Then I glanced toward the car. Ethan didn't look up. He kept tapping on his phone, pretending not to hear. That told me everything I needed to know. I kept my voice calm. "You cut me out. You told me I was done. I believed you then. Believe me now, I'm not coming back." My father's expression hardened. "You'll let the company go bankrupt?" "I don't want it to fail," I said. "But it's not my company anymore. You made that clear." He exhaled, the sound rough and tired. "We built that business for our family." "No," I said quietly. "I built it for the customers. You turned it into a monument for your pride. And that's why it's falling." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "Please, Jennifer. You can save us." I shook my head. No one can save something built on arrogance. Then I closed the door. Slowly, quietly. Inside, I leaned against the wall, letting the silence stretch through the house. My heart was steady. My hands didn't shake. I walked to the kitchen, filled a glass with water, and stood by the window. Outside, the maple trees swayed gently in the morning wind. It wasn't triumph I felt, it was peace. 2 months later, the news broke. Carter and North filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the United States Bankruptcy Court for the District of New Jersey. I saw it online while drinking coffee at my desk. Their assets were listed at $62 million, liabilities were at $79 million. Suppliers had walked away, distributors had joined new networks, and employees had left for better jobs. The press used an old photo of my parents at a ribbon cutting, all smiles and confidence. My name wasn't mentioned anywhere. I didn't need it to be. That evening, I wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and sat on the porch steps. The sun was setting, painting the lake gold. My neighbor, Mrs. Lane, waved from her gate. "You look lighter these days," she said. "I am," I told her. And it was true. For the first time in years, I didn't feel tied to anyone else's expectations. My parents' company had fallen, but I was finally free. I didn't need their empire. I had my integrity, and that was worth more than $450 million. As the last light faded, I whispered into the quiet air, "This is what peace looks like." And inside me, something answered back. It felt like victory. After the bankruptcy of Carter and North, I didn't celebrate with champagne or revenge speeches. I celebrated in silence, in the home I had built for myself. My house in Seattle had always been more than a building. It was a symbol of everything I'd earned without anyone's permission. The walls held memories of long nights, big dreams, and quiet resilience. For the first time in years, I could finally breathe without the weight of my family's shadow pressing down on me. The first thing I did was fix what was mine. I repainted the front door a deep navy, planted lavender along the walkway, and cleaned every window until they shone like new. The smell of fresh paint mixed with the floral scent from the garden, and it felt like I had scrubbed the last trace of my parents' betrayal out of my life. Inside, I rearranged everything. I sold the old gray couch that reminded me of long hours spent working on Carter and North files. I replaced it with a soft cream sofa, one that felt light, open, and new. I paid a local carpenter $1,200 to refinish my dining table, a sturdy oak piece that would become the heart of my home. In my office, I hung a large map of the United States and marked every city where my new company, Northlake Systems, now delivers on time. Seattle,
Portland,
San Francisco, Phoenix, Denver, Dallas, Chicago,
Atlanta,
Miami,
Boston,
New York City. I stood back and smiled. The red pins looked like stars connected by invisible strings, proof that my second act was not only surviving, it was thriving. By the end of our first quarter, we had earned $3.6 million in revenue. The second quarter brought $7.8 million. Margins were modest but honest. Every invoice was paid within 14 days, and I introduced a 1% discount for early payments. It wasn't about squeezing extra profit. It was about fairness and integrity, values my family had long forgotten. I used part of our earnings to create a free training program for small dealers. I hired a tech team in Austin for $45,000 to build a simple online system where clients could track shipments, check inventory, and schedule deliveries. No middlemen, no hidden fees. Just clarity. Mariah, my first hire, now led a team of two, Jay and Tessa. She was calm and sharp, the kind of person who noticed things before they became problems. I paid them $68,000 and $71,000, with health insurance and bonuses built into their contracts. I told them what my father never told me. You're not just employees. You're the foundation. We set one company rule that everyone loved: no messages or calls after 7 p.m. unless a hospital shipment was at risk. Work hard during the day, rest at night. That rule became part of our culture, and for once, I had a team that respected balance as much as success. Outside of work, I rebuilt myself piece by piece. I ran around Green Lake at sunrise. I cooked pasta with lemon and garlic. I bought a used upright piano for $2,400 and taught myself one new song every week. On Sundays, I drove 2 hours west to the coast, parked near the cliffs, and watched the waves crash against the rocks. I'd leave my phone in the car and sit in silence, thinking of nothing but the rhythm of the sea. One quiet afternoon in late spring, I received an email from an old client, a buyer who had once worked with me in London and had since moved to New York. His message was short: "If Northlake ever wants a small partner in Europe, call me." The old Jennifer, the one who lived for expansion, competition, and validation, would have replied instantly with an excited yes. But the new me paused. I made a cup of tea, sat by the window, and asked myself a different question. What kind of life do I actually want? After a long sip, I wrote back, "Maybe next year. For now, I'm building something steady here." It felt good to choose peace over power. A few weeks later, a letter arrived in my mailbox. The handwriting on the envelope made my heart tighten. It was my mother's. I opened it slowly.
"We are sorry," it read.
"We hope you are well." That was it. No explanations. No mention of Ethan or the company. Just a brief note that felt like both an apology and an admission of defeat. I didn't cry, and I didn't write back. I placed the letter in my desk drawer. Forgiveness, I realized, was like a locked room. I could open it someday, but not yet. Summer arrived early in Seattle. Warm evenings, soft winds, the smell of lilacs in bloom. I decided to hold a small gathering in my backyard to celebrate North Lake's first anniversary. No suits, no speeches, no press releases. Just friends, laughter, and food. We strung fairy lights across the maple tree, set up a grill, and played music from a small speaker. Grace flew in from Ohio with her famous pie, and Luis drove up from Oregon with a case of craft beer. We toasted with sparkling water in paper cups, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was performing for anyone. When it was my turn to speak, I kept it short. "Thank you for trusting me," I said. "We'll keep our word. That's our plan, always." Mariah raised her glass. "To trust," she said. Everyone echoed her words, and for a moment, the world felt simple and whole. That night, after everyone left, I walked through the quiet house, barefoot and tired, but happy. The string lights outside swayed in the breeze, glowing faintly through the window. I ran my hand over the doorframe, the same one I'd painted months before, and felt a calm I hadn't known in years. In my office, the map of the United States glowed under a small lamp. Each pin reminded me of a promise kept, a chapter closed, a step forward. I thought of the girl who once arrived in New York with one suitcase and a head full of dreams. And I thought of the woman who had stood at her own front door in Seattle, telling her father no, and meaning it. People say revenge is sweet. But to me, it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about freedom. Winning didn't feel like crushing my family. It felt like waking up in my own home, paying my team on time, smelling lavender on the porch, and hearing laughter in the hallway. I didn't need their approval, their company, or their money. I had something far better. My house. My work. My peace. The fall they never saw began the day they betrayed me. The rise they never expected began the day I walked away. Top of form. Bottom of form.